Hey, book lovers. Welcome to While I Read. I'm Katie Dodrell. We're coming up on Valentine's Day, so I thought it would be fun to make a list of mysteries and thrillers that feature love stories or romantic elements. And it was fun coming up with this list, but I have to admit it was also very challenging because what I found was that if I tell you that a thriller features a good love story in it, that might be spoiling that book for you. Because a lot of times throughout the book, you're wondering if the couple is going to get together, or you're also wondering if maybe the love interest could actually be the murderer. So if I tell you that, oh, has a good romantic love story, that sort of spoils things for you. But I persevered, and I want you to know that this list is spoiler free. I chose books in such a way that it shouldn't spoil anything for you. So some of these books are series where it's pretty obvious from the beginning that two characters have chemistry and are going to have some kind of relationship. Some of the books are standalone books where it won't spoil it for you to know that there is some kind of chemistry between the two characters. So some of the books are ones where the two characters end up together, even end up married. Some of the books are ones where you can't tell which person the main character is going to choose. Maybe there's a couple of different ones that she might end up with, but it won't spoil it for you to know that there's that romantic subplot in it. And some of these books are ones where the characters don't necessarily end up together, but there's really good chemistry between them. I do want to mention that all the books on this list have links down in the description box. If you click on that link to purchase the book, I will get a small percentage of the proceeds at no extra cost to you. This is a way that you can support my channel if you're interested. Of course, as always, I want your comments if you've read any of these books, or if you think you want to read any, or any books that you think have good romantic subplots in them. So let's go ahead and get started with mysteries and thrillers that feature romance. So first, I want to talk about the Cormoran Strike series by Robert Galbraith. As you probably know, Robert Galbraith is a pseudonym for J.K. Rowling, but these books are nothing like the Harry Potter books. So our hero is Cormoran Strike. He is a retired member of the British Army. He actually lost a leg serving in Afghanistan. He is back in England, and he has opened a private detective agency in England. So Cormoran hires a woman named Robin Ellicott to be a temporary secretary for his detective agency. But Robin ends up staying on and ends up becoming his partner. So there are 7 books so far in this series. The 8th one, I think, is coming out this year, and I'm so excited for that. But throughout the books, it features Cormoran and Robin solving the mysteries of these people who bring their cases to the private detective agency. So there's one that features a model who, it seems, fell off a balcony to her death, but was she pushed? There's another that features a famous author who was murdered, and Cormoran and Robin are trying to figure out how he was murdered. So there are many different cases throughout the books. But one of the best parts of the books is watching the relationship between Cormoran and Robin. It is a very slow burn romance, and I don't know that you can even call it a romance because they're never actually together, but there are always little signs that they're going to get together. As the books start, Cormoran has just ended a long-term relationship with a woman that he was engaged to. Robin has just gotten engaged to a man. And so they're obviously not in a place where they can have any kind of romantic relationship with each other, but there is always that spark of chemistry between them. And it just grows throughout the books. We see a friendship develop between them, and there's always that little thought that maybe eventually something is going to happen. And so different things happen to their relationship throughout the books. Like I said, it's a very slow burn thing. It's great to see both Cormoran and Robin maturing as people and getting to the point where maybe we hope they're ready for a relationship with each other. So I recommend the Cormoran Strike series is just a great mystery series across the board, but I especially love the relationship between Cormoran and Robin. Next, I want to tell you about The Wrong Man by Kate White. So this book is about a woman named Kit. She has a decorating business in New York City, but as the book begins, she's on vacation in the Florida Keys. And she really wants to be more daring in her life. So she meets this man named Matt Healy, and they kind of have this whirlwind romance. And she just gives herself permission to kind of just go into this romance and not worry about the consequences. So Matt is also from New York. And so he asked her to come and see him at his apartment when they're back in New York. So she's back in New York. She goes to the address that he gave her. And the man who opens the door does not look anything like the man that she had the romance with in Florida. So she thinks she has the wrong address or something like that. But the guy who opens the door says that his name is Matt Healy too. So she can't figure out what is going on. Who is the real Matt Healy? Who was this guy that she met in the Florida Keys? She ends up getting involved in this very sinister plot. And so as the reader, you're trying to figure out, was the guy that she met really a good guy? Or is the guy who actually opened the door for her, who seems like a nice guy too, could he actually be the good guy in this scenario? We don't know. So the character of Kit is really interesting. Her relationships with both of the male characters that we meet are really interesting. And the book does end up having some pretty good romantic elements to it. So I definitely recommend this as a really good romantic suspense thriller. And it also has some pretty good love story elements to it. Next, I want to tell you about the Quinn and Costa series by Alison Brennan. So Kara Quinn and Matt Costa are members of the FBI's mobile response team. And this series has around 6 or 7 books in it at this point. So Matt Costa is the leader of this mobile response team. Basically, this is a division of the FBI that travels around to different local areas to help with cases that the local police are having trouble with for whatever reason. A lot of times it involves some kind of serial killer, and the mobile response team just has a lot of resources that the local police might not have. Kara Quinn is an LAPD detective, but because she went undercover and her cover was blown and she's in danger, so she can't really work as a detective anymore. So she doesn't really want to be part of the mobile response team at first, but if she wants to continue her law enforcement career, this is one of the only options she has. So she joins this team. And so very quickly, it's obvious that she and Matt Costa have chemistry together. And reading about their relationship over the course of this series is just so much fun. They both grow a lot as characters. They grow in their relationship with each other. There's constant excitement with the cases that they're solving, and they're going to all different areas of the country, like the Louisiana Bayou or an island off the coast of Maine, just everywhere you could think of. So it's a really exciting series, and the relationship between Quinn and Costa and their character development is one of the best parts of it. Next, I want to tell you about This Rough Magic by Mary Stewart. So this is the oldest book on this list. It was published in the early 1960s, I believe, but it is so good. You may recognize the title, This Rough Magic, as a quote from the Shakespeare play, The Tempest, and that play actually has an important part in the book. The book is set on the Greek island of Corfu, which is believed to be where The Tempest is set, although we don't know for sure. So it's about this young British actress named Lucy who is visiting her sister on this island. Lucy has just had some bad luck in her acting career, and so she is sort of licking her wounds here on this beautiful sun drenched island. So she's planning to just have this peaceful time, but while she's there, some kind of scary, mysterious things happen. She's taking a swim in this beautiful sheltered bay when she hears what she realizes are gunshots. And there is a dolphin that's swimming with her in the bay, and apparently someone is shooting at the dolphin, and she can't figure out why. So then she finds out that a young man who lives on the island named Spiro has drowned. And so it seems that it's accidental, but of course, we start wondering if perhaps it was not an accidental death. So Lucy actually has a couple of different possible love interests in the book. One is a man named Max Gale, who is the son of a famous actor who is there on the island. And so we start finding out more about Max Gale and why he and his father are there. There is another man on the island named Godfrey Manning, who is a photographer, and Lucy gets to know him as well. So both of these are very interesting characters. They're both involved in the mystery in some way of Spiro's death and the shots at the dolphin and some of the other scary things that are happening in this book. So it's a very exciting book. I love the setting. It's just so beautifully described. Mary Stewart books, I just always love them. They always have great settings. I always love the strong, independent heroine. And they're always exciting, but they always have that hint of romance too. So you will love reading this book and figuring out which man is the good guy that Lucy will, of course, end up with in the end. Next, I want to tell you about the Sons of Anson Selenas series by Jane Ann Krentz. So this is a 3-book series where the books are kind of loosely tied together, but they all feature different characters. So the thing that ties these books together is that each one of them focuses on a different foster son of this man named Anson Selenas. And the foster sons are all in one way or another investigating a cult involving a man named Quentin Zane. So the first book, When All the Girls Have Gone, is about a woman named Charlotte whose sister Jocelyn is killed. And so Charlotte ends up working with a private investigator named Max Cutler to figure out what happened to Charlotte or to Jocelyn. So Charlotte and Max end up in a relationship, and reading about their relationship is one of the most interesting parts of this book. So in the next book in the series, Promise Not to Tell, we're following an art gallery owner named Virginia. And Virginia was involved in a cult as a child, and now some things are happening that she thinks may be related to that cult and to what she faced as a child. So she ends up working with Cabot Sutter, who is another private detective who is part of Max's detective agency. They're foster brothers. So in Promise Not to Tell, we follow the romance between Virginia and Cabot. So in the last book, Untouchable, we're following an FBI agent named Jack Lancaster. And he is the third foster child of Anson Selenas. So Max and Cabot from the other books are his foster brothers, and they were all raised by Anson Selenas. So Jack is an FBI agent, and he has to work with some really dark cases. And he works with a woman named Winter Meadows. And so he and Winter end up forming a relationship. And so all 3 of the brothers end up investigating this cult that was led by Quentin Zane that is part of all of their past and also part of the past of some of the women they formed relationships with. It sounds pretty confusing as I'm explaining it to you, but I wasn't confused as I was reading the books. I found them all to be very suspenseful. I loved the characters and the relationships that they formed. And they all had just great romantic elements to them, in addition to the great family elements that we see between these three foster brothers and their foster dad. So I definitely recommend this series if you're looking for a really suspenseful thriller or mystery book that also has some great romantic elements to it. Next, I want to tell you about Alias, Emma by Ava Glass. So, this book is about a British spy named Emma. It's the first in a 3-book series, and I've really enjoyed all the books in the series. This first one was my favorite. So, in this book, Emma her agency is trying to protect this doctor. He is the son of Russian dissidents, and there are assassins who are trying to kill him. So Emma has to get him across London into protective custody. But there are a couple of problems. One problem is that he does not want to go into protective custody. He is happy with his life as a doctor. He doesn't think there's any reason for the bad guys to be after him, and so he doesn't want to go with her. The other problem is that the Russians have hacked London's CCTV cameras, the famous Ring of Steel. And so Emma has to stay off of the CCTV cameras. So that means she can't take, buses or trains because there's cameras. She has to try to keep to areas where they're not going to be spotted on CCTV camera, which is almost impossible in England or in London. So there are just some really cool parts. There's one part where they're in this underground river beneath London. That's where they travel for part of their journey. It's very exciting, and the chemistry between Emma and the doctor that she's trying to save is just electric. It's really neat to read. Of course, it's taking place over the course of just one night, so everything is very quick. But we read about Emma trying to protect this doctor and him not really wanting to be protected. But then the two characters kind of getting to know each other, learning to trust each other. We read about the ways that they're able to help each other on this journey. So it's so exciting. I could not put it down while I was reading it, and it has great chemistry between the two characters. So next, I want to move away from thrillers and focus on some cozy mysteries that have some romantic elements in their plots. And one series that I just love is the Amelia Peabody series by Elizabeth Peters. This series started back in the late 70s. It has a bunch of books in it. I don't even know how many books. It was so good. So it's about a woman named Amelia Peabody. And it starts off in about 1885, I believe. And Amelia has gone to Egypt. She is on her own because her father has passed away. He's left a lot of money to her. She's in her 30s and unmarried. So, she's a spinster, but she has decided that she wants to go to Egypt. And so when she gets there, she gets involved in this plot involving what seems to be a walking mummy that is terrorizing people. She meets some archaeologists. She meets another woman who is in sort of a tough predicament. And so Amelia has to solve all of these mysteries. So in the first book, Amelia is single. She's on her own. But by the second book, well, this happens in the first book, she ends up getting married. She has a child. So all of the other books in the series feature her with her husband and her child, and they are solving these mysteries that they have some kind of archaeological element. So they're always on a dig, and then something mysterious happens. Somebody is murdered. Amelia's husband gets angry because he just wants to focus on the dig, but of course Amelia wants to get involved with solving the mystery. The books are so exciting. Amelia is just a hilarious character. She is bossy. She's kind of mean, but she loves the people that she's close to and will do anything to help them. And so they are just such good books, and I've really enjoyed it. And the love story between Amelia and her husband is just wonderful. I actually started reading these books back in the 90s when my granny was the librarian in my town. She and I read these books together, and I can remember us being so excited every summer when a new book in the series would come out, and she would make sure that the library got a copy of it. We would both read it. My best friend Amy loved these books too. So I have great memories of this series, and I enjoy rereading the books in it from time to time. Next, I want to tell you about the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series by Alexander McCall Smith. So, this series is about a woman in Botswana, Africa, named Precious Ramatswe. She's referred to in the books as Ma Ramatswe, which is the title used in Africa or in Botswana. And so these books all feature her trying to solve the mysteries that come into her private detective agency. At the beginning of the series, she is single, but she too ends up getting married as the series progresses. And so it's so fun to see her relationship with her husband, to see how it grows, and to see how their family grows. She has a secretary named Ma Potakwane who ends up becoming her partner in this business. And Ma Potakwane also is single at the beginning, but ends up having a relationship, building a family. So these books are just such nice, comforting books. They focus on the mysteries that these two women are solving. Lots of times it's not a murder mystery, but it's some kind of gentler mystery, like someone is stealing from a business or there's somebody who's disappeared, but they do have some very exciting elements to it. I remember in the first book, there's one where there's a young boy who's gone missing, and Mara Matsue has to figure out where he is. So this is just a great series of books, and it also features some very sweet romantic elements as well. Next, in the cozy mysteries, I want to tell you about the Mr. and Mrs. Darcy series by Carrie Bebris. So I believe this series is complete now. It focuses on Elizabeth and Fitzwilliam Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. So, of course, at the end of Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth and Fitzwilliam have gotten engaged. And as this series starts, it starts right after their wedding, and they are thrown into a mystery. So, in each one of the books in the series, Elizabeth and Fitzwilliam are trying to solve some kind of mystery. Could be a mysterious death, or it could be the mysterious disappearance of someone. They also feature some of our other beloved characters from Jane Austen and from the Pride and Prejudice book. So it's really fun to read this and read about the characters we love. And of course, Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy just have the best relationship. In the original Pride and Prejudice, of course, they hated each other at first, they argued all the time, and their relationship still has that spice in this series. But we also see that they have moved into a more loving version of their arguments. We also get to see their family growing throughout this series. So it's just a great mystery series featuring some characters that we love. And it's great to see this beautiful relationship between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy as it grows. And finally, I want to tell you about another Jane Austen cozy mystery series, the Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney series by Claudia Gray. This is not related to the Mr. and Mrs. Darcy series. It takes place in a totally different world. Well, the world of Regency England, but it's not the same series. So, Mr. Darcy in this series is Jonathan Darcy, who is the son of Elizabeth and Fitzwilliam Darcy. Miss Tilney is Juliet Tilney, who is the daughter of Catherine and Henry Tilney from Northanger Abbey. And so Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney meet each other at a house party where there ends up being a murder. And so throughout in every book, Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney are trying to solve some kind of murder together. And the murder is usually of a character in one of the original Jane Austen books. So in one of them, it's Mr. Wickham, and in others it's other characters from the Jane Austen books. And we see characters from other books like Emma and Mr. Knightley, and some of the characters from Mansfield Park. There's just all different characters from the original books who come into play. So Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney have this very slow burn romance that is going on through all the books. Of course, it's Regency England, so there are rules for courtship. There are also other things at play, like their families don't really like each other. Neither family really thinks that their child should get involved with the other one. So that's something at play. Jonathan Darcy is also what we would consider now to be neurodivergent. But of course, at the time, there was no name for it, and people just sort of think that he's odd. And it's beautiful to see how Juliet just accepts him just as he is and wants to be his friend and possibly more. So these are just great books, great slow burn romance where we get to see some of our beloved characters from the Jane Austen books. So that's it for my mysteries and thrillers that are exciting and fun to read and also feature great romantic subplots. Please comment if you've read any of these books or if you have any that you would add to this list. Thank you for watching. If you like book recommendations and reviews, please subscribe to my channel. Now, go snuggle with your Valentine while I read.